The check clears on a Tuesday. By Friday, your mother-in-law has an opinion about the school district. Nobody says the two things are connected. Nobody has to. You notice it the way you notice weather changing. Not the moment it happens, just the fact that it already has, and that you're the last person in the room to name it out loud. You've spent years assuming the money and the opinions were two separate gifts, arriving on their own schedules for their own reasons. They aren't. They never were. The opinions were always priced into the money. You just weren't shown the invoice until you'd already spent what it paid for. Your friend Theo married into a family with real money, more than yours will probably ever touch, and none of it has ever once arrived in his mailbox. Not a check, not a loan, not a gift that turns out to have terms. His in-laws could help. They have decided deliberately not to. And the strange result is that Theo is the freest person you know when the subject of family comes up, because there's never been anything for them to hold. You didn't understand for a long time that the absence of the money was the actual gift. You thought Theo was missing out. Somewhere between 40 and 60% of parents who financially support their adult children attach conditions to that support, spoken or not, itemized or not, and the number climbs the larger the gift gets. Nobody hands you this statistic before the first check clears. You learn it the way you learn most things about your own family. Too late to have used it, in time to finally recognize the shape of what already happened. Tier 1, no help offered. Under 20,000, there is no money coming from anyone, and for a long time this feels like the injury. Watching friends get help you never will. Calculating in private what your life might look like with even a fraction of what other people's parents casually wire them. You resent it, quietly, the way you resent most things you don't yet have the distance to see clearly. What you don't notice yet is what the absence is also buying you. Nobody calls to ask why you haven't started saving for a house. Nobody has an opinion about your partner's job, your rent, the used car you bought, instead of a better one, because nobody has put a single dollar behind having an opinion. You are financially invisible to them. And invisibility, it turns out, is its own kind of room to breathe in. Theo's in-laws could write a check tomorrow that would change your friend's decade. They don't, and he doesn't ask, and at family dinners, nobody mentions his job, his car, his 5-year plan, because there's nothing writing on any of it for them. You watch this and think it looks like distance. It takes you years to understand it's actually the absence of a bill. You compare notes with him once at a bar, the kind of conversation you only have after the second drink. Him envying the safety net you might someday get. You envying the silence he already has. Neither of you says it plainly, but you both leave the conversation with the same quiet arithmetic running. That what you're each missing might be worth more than what you're each wishing for. The first rule, at 0, they don't help you. And the not helping is the only thing keeping the room a fair fight. Tier 2, the first small gift. The first one arrives small. Groceries covered on a visit. A phone bill quietly paid for a month, the kind of gift that's genuinely just a gift, or close enough to one that you don't think twice. You say thank you, you mean it. The comment arrives roughly a week later, and it never announces itself as connected. A remark about the apartment being small for 2 people. A question about whether your partner's job has room to grow. Nothing you could point to and call ungrateful about. Nothing that would sound reasonable if you repeated it back to someone outside the family. Just a new willingness suddenly to weigh in on choices that were entirely yours a month ago. You start doing quiet math you never used to do, whether accepting the next small kindness is worth the next small opinion that follows it, a ledger nobody asked you to keep and nobody else in the family seems to notice they're running too. Your partner defends the comment. You don't push it. Pushing it would mean naming what you both already suspect, which is that the gift and the opinion arrived in the same envelope, and you already cashed it. Theo this year gets asked to a family dinner where the school district for a niece comes up, extensively, discussed by everyone with an actual dollar in the conversation. Nobody asks Theo's opinion. He has nothing riding on the outcome, and the family, without ever deciding this consciously, has stopped inviting his input on anything that costs money to have an opinion about. The second rule, the first gift is never just a gift. It's a small deposit on a voice they didn't have in your life a month ago. and you rarely notice the deposit until the withdrawal. Tier 3, the down payment. Nearly 1 in 4 homebuyers your age used family money to help fund the down payment, and about 1 in 5 buyers overall get some kind of financial gift or loan from family to close on a house. A real, common, unremarkable thing to do. And also the tier where the leverage stops being implied and starts being structural. The check this time is large enough to matter, and the opinions arrive with a permanence the earlier ones never had. Which neighborhood? Which school district? Again, except now it's not a comment over dinner. It's a condition of the wire transfer actually landing before the closing date. Whether the guest bedroom should be reserved for visits. None of it is phrased as a demand. All of it is understood by everyone at the table to function like one. You sign paperwork that names your in-laws nowhere on the deed and everywhere in the decision. The house is yours, the mortgage is yours. The say in what the house becomes, oddly, was never fully yours to begin with. It was bought, dollar by dollar, at the exact moment you accepted the down payment. And nobody explained the terms because the terms were never written down anywhere. You could have read them in advance. There is a specific evening you remember more than the closing itself. Standing in the kitchen of the house you haven't moved into yet. Your partner on the phone with their mother, agreeing to a paint color neither of you actually wanted, both of you telling yourselves it's a small thing. Small enough not to be worth the conversation that saying no would require. You've had a dozen evenings like it since. You've stopped counting which decisions were really yours and which ones were just yours to execute. Theo buys his own house the same year, smaller than he could afford with help, in a neighborhood his in-laws never mention, with a mortgage that took 2 more years of saving than yours did. Nobody has an opinion about his kitchen. Nobody has earned the right to. The third rule, at the down payment, the money stops being a gift and becomes a stake, and a stake, once purchased, is rarely sold back. Tier 4, the ongoing presence. Past a certain point, the help stops arriving as single events and becomes a permanent feature of the relationship. A standing invitation to help out whenever it's useful, tuition covered for a grandchild, a loan between family that nobody expects repaid and nobody calls a gift either, because a gift would close the account and the loan keeps it open indefinitely. Every major decision now runs through a room that includes people who aren't paying your mortgage, but are, in every practical sense, still invested in the outcome. A job offer in another city becomes a conversation with 4 people in it instead of 2. A private school application becomes a family debate you didn't call a meeting for. You've stopped being able to tell most days which opinions in your own household actually originate in your own household. Theo's in-laws still haven't offered him anything, still don't attend the conversations about his career, his kids' schools, the renovation he and his wife argued about for a month before deciding on their own. He complains sometimes that they feel distant. You've stopped telling him what that distance is actually buying him, because by now, you're not sure you could explain it without sounding like you're describing your own life as a cautionary tale. The fourth rule, past a certain size, the help doesn't end. It just stops needing to ask permission to weigh in, because permission was granted years ago, in installments, without a single formal vote. Tier 5, the structural tier. At the top, the money moves before anyone even asks. Trusts, estate plans, a family business with your name quietly added to something you didn't request. All of it framed as generosity. All of it also functioning as architecture. You are, by every legal document, extremely well provided for. You're also, by every practical measure, permanently on someone else's board. The opinions here don't even need to be spoken anymore. Everyone in the family already knows what everyone else would think, has already run the calculation, has already adjusted the decision before it reaches a room. This is what the family would call closeness. It is also, when you say it plainly, a lifetime's accumulation of the exact mechanism that started with a covered phone bill and a comment about your apartment being small. You sit at a holiday dinner and watch a decision get made about a grandchild's school without anyone at the table ever formally proposing it. A name mentioned once, a nod, the subject moved past, and somehow by dessert, it is simply what's happening. Nobody asked you. Nobody needed to. You realize, watching it, that the version of consent this family runs on stopped requiring your voice a long time before you noticed it was gone. Theo's in laws die eventually, the way everyone's do, having given him nothing and asked him for nothing in return, and he inherits nothing either. No money, no leverage, no seat on anyone's board, and also no lifetime of installments paid in opinions he never got to decline. He tells you at the funeral that he doesn't know if he'd have chosen it this way. You don't tell him what you'd have chosen. You're honestly no longer sure. The fifth rule, at the top, the money was never really about the money. It was a very patient, very generous way of never having to let go of a vote. The check cleared on a Tuesday, all those years ago, and you thanked her for it the way you were supposed to, meaning it completely. And you still mean it, mostly. Even now that you can see the whole shape of what you agreed to without ever signing anything. You think about Theo sometimes. And the empty mailbox that turned out to be the most expensive kind of freedom nobody offers you a version of on purpose. By Friday, there was an opinion about the school district. There always is eventually, once the first check clears. Not because anyone in your family is unkind, but because money, once it moves toward you, rarely moves alone. It brings a voice with it, and the voice moves in quietly and stays exactly as long as the money does.